The Week in Review with David Davis.
I can announce that the Parliamentary Party does have confidence.
The big news this week has been Boris surviving his vote of confidence by 211 to 148. That's 59% to 41%. It was actually a narrower gap than most people thought would happen, but nevertheless, it's a resolution and it's time to get on with the normal business of the year. The Prime Minister has a year, as it were, of grace now to reset his leadership. And there have been some arguments that we should allow another vote in less time than that. I don't approve of that. I think having votes of confidence too often can threaten the stability of any Prime Minister, and they need to have a degree of confidence to get on with running the country and delivering the services that we are elected to serve. So notwithstanding that I've been one who's called for his resignation, I think now we've got to put this behind us and get on with running the country. And first, amongst the issues, in my view, the highest priority should be cutting taxes. I think we're overtaxing people by tens of billions, whether it's national insurance, whether it's income tax levels, or whether it's corporation tax. At the moment, we have no growth and a cost of living crisis, yet we have the highest taxes since the 1950s, which will make both of those issues worse. Now, the Chancellor has announced some financial relief, but frankly, it's better not to take money from people in the first place rather than take it away and give it back. In particular, this is important because everybody now expects us to be heading towards stagflation at the end of this year and next year. And the simple truth is, we've had stagflation before, back in the 70s. We had it worse than almost any other country. The reason for that was our growth rate was low. If you've got a low growth rate, there's not a great deal you can do about stagflation. So we've got to get the growth rate back up in the way into the next year. That means cutting taxes. That means making business easier to do. That means giving people more money to spend. Now, while the media understandably focused on Monday's dramas about the confidence vote, Parliament continued its role in scrutinising vital legislation. And in particular on that day, we debated new national security legislation that would radically reform the United Kingdom's national security and official secrets and espionage laws. Of course, legislation of this kind is undoubtedly necessary. I mean, the relevant Official Secrets Acts were drafted in response to the sort of kinds of threats faced during the First and Second World Wars and at latest the Cold War. So espionage legislation needs to be updated to reflect the nature of modern espionage and state threats. But as with all national security legislation, this bill could have unintended consequences for civil liberties. I spoke in a debate on Monday, warning about the potential impact of the bill.
There's no doubt that this national security legislation is needed, indeed probably that it's overdue. But like all national security legislation, it's written from the point of view of the enforcers. It'll be the enforcement agency's lawyers who will have done most of the drafting. So it is no surprise that it leans towards the state, and it is no surprise that sometimes it's stated in vague terms.
The outstanding example of this is Clause 23, which, as drafted, would in effect give ministers and officials immunity for assisting crimes abroad, potentially giving a legal endorsement to rendition, torture, even assassination. The government should think again about the effect this will have on our condemnation of states like Russia and Saudi Arabia for crimes committed abroad but presumably authorised by ministers at home. We don't want to put ourselves on the same level as the murderers of Khashoggi, for example, or Litvinenko. I've long campaigned against the worrying creep of the surveillance state. It's long been a growing problem. And here in Parliament this week, Big Brother Watch launched their damning report who's watching you, the dominance of Chinese state-owned CCTV in the UK. Indeed, this is a copy of the report. Now, the report shows the shocking extent to which UK police forces, schools, hospitals, councils, etc. rely on Chinese technology as part of their standard CCTV networks. Now, this is technology that comes ready equipped with advanced surveillance capabilities such as facial recognition, person tracking and gender identification. The companies making this technology, such as Hikvision, are Chinese state-owned. And the Chinese government uses the cameras in the surveillance and oppression of people in Xinjiang. The companies are also accused of supplying cameras and equipment to concentration camps in the region. They directly facilitate the brutal persecution and oppression of Uyghur Muslims by the Beijing regime. So the use of these cameras here in the UK is a human rights issue, a national security issue, and a civil liberty issue. Because of these concerns, the United States has already blacklisted the companies. We need to be in step with our international partners and should also look to ban invasive and oppressive technology from these firms anywhere in our nation. Many years ago, I had a parachuting accident. Somebody hit my parachute midair, it collapsed, hit the ground going very fast. And although I walked away from it and thought I'd got away with the accident, in practice, I had actually done some damage to my eye. Indeed, I think I'd detached the retina. I didn't even notice, and it refixed itself, and so nothing happened. But then a few years ago, I started getting a blurred left eye, the eye that was damaged. And so I went to Moorfields Hospital to have somebody look at me, and the first chap I saw, very advanced specialist in these things, told me in the middle of the interview or in the interview discussion that he was the glaucoma specialist. And this brought back my very first campaign in the House of Commons, when the then Conservative government under Margaret Thatcher was going to abolish free eyesight tests. Now, glaucoma is discovered when you go to have your eyesight tested by the little puff of air they blow into your eye sometimes, the test they give you. And 88% of glaucomas are discovered this way. So I worked out that if we took away the free eyesight test, the result would be to reduce the number of people who had their tests, and that in turn would lead to probably a couple of thousand people a year going blind prematurely. Indeed, it led to a rather stiff conversation I once had with Margaret Thatcher, who was complaining that I was rebelling. And I said to her, I didn't get elected, Mrs. Thatcher, to have 3 of my constituents go blind every year. She gave me a frosty glare, as you can imagine, from those steel blue eyes of hers. Anyway, what was interesting about all this is that they did an amazing set of scans of my eyes. And I just thought I'd show you one, something that we wouldn't have really had available 20 years ago or even longer when I had the accident. But today they can tell whether, as in my case, a small bubble has appeared at the back of the eye, covering up a bit of the retina. And of course that allows them to do all sorts of things, either in treatment or operations, to put it right. And hopefully they will in due course. But I just thought a really interesting piece of medical technology actually shown in operation on my own eye. Well, thank you for watching Review of the Week number 4. We're still modifying this, trying to make it really reflect what people want to see or want to hear. So if you've got questions, you've got ideas, you've got areas you'd like me to cover, do send in, and we'll see if we can reflect, if we get sufficient demand for any particular thing, we'll see if we can reflect that in the coming episodes. Thanks again.